Here's something most people don't know about the death of Socrates. He didn't have to die. His friends arranged it. Crito, one of his closest companions, had already bribed the prison guards. The boat was waiting. The plan was solid. All Socrates had to do was walk out. He refused, not reluctantly, cheerfully. And that cheerfulness is what's going to bother you. Because we expect someone facing death to be either terrified or nobly grim. Socrates was neither. He spent his final hours talking philosophy, making jokes at his own expense, and calmly sending his weeping friends out of the room so they'd stop making a scene. The question isn't whether he was brave. The question is why he thought this was the obvious choice, and what it says about how the rest of us think about our reputations, our safety, and what we're actually willing to stand behind. The cheerfulness is the part people find hardest to accept. In the Phaedo, Socrates is described as so visibly at ease that his friends are embarrassed by their own grief. He comforts them. He argues, at some length, about the soul, not because he's certain he's right, but because thinking it through carefully seems like the obviously correct way to spend a last afternoon. You've probably had the experience of preparing for something you dreaded and finding, in the preparation itself, a kind of steadiness. The dread was about uncertainty. The action, the deciding, removed the uncertainty. Socrates had decided. That was done. What remained was just a conversation, then a cup of hemlock, then whatever came next. Xenophon records that Socrates had refused to prepare a defense speech, believing that preparing to say things you might not mean was worse than saying nothing at all. The cheerfulness wasn't performance. It was what's left when you've stopped trying to manage other people's perception of you. You've done a version of this, not with death, but with the moment when you had the escape available and chose not to take it. Maybe it was staying in a difficult conversation instead of walking out. Maybe it was not sending the apology email that would have made you look guilty even though you weren't. Maybe it was the job you didn't take because taking it would have meant agreeing, implicitly, with something someone said about what you were capable of. There's a version of Socratic integrity that most of us practice without naming it. We stay put in situations where leaving would require us to betray something we've built our identity around. The difference between that and Socrates is scale and consistency. He'd been building that identity for 70 years. When the test arrived, there was nothing inside him that wanted to contradict it. Most of us haven't built that clearly, which is why the escape options still tempt us. Socrates had spent decades walking through the most important city in the ancient world, finding the people most confident in their own expertise, and asking them simple questions until they contradicted themselves. He did this to generals, he did this to politicians. He claimed he wasn't doing it to embarrass them. He was doing it because he was genuinely confused and hoped they could help. The confusion was real. The embarrassment was also real. Athens didn't put Socrates on trial because he was dangerous. Athens put him on trial because he was inconvenient. Because the thing he kept demonstrating, quietly, publicly, relentlessly, was that the people in charge of things didn't actually understand what they were doing. That kind of inconvenience tends to get resolved through institutional force when it can't be resolved any other way. The charges were the paperwork. The actual grievance was this: he wouldn't stop asking questions. Epictetus quoted Socrates more than almost anyone else. This matters because Epictetus had reasons to take the question seriously. He was enslaved for most of his early life. His owner, by one account, broke his leg to demonstrate that Epictetus couldn't stop him. Epictetus's response, as Celsus records it, was to say, "You will break it," calmly, with no resistance, and then, when it broke, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" That's Socratic composure in a man with far less to lose than Socrates had. Epictetus didn't read Socrates as a martyr or a saint. He read him as a demonstration that there is a category of things that cannot be taken from you as long as you don't hand them over. Your judgment, your assent, what you value. A death sentence can take your body. It cannot take your position on whether the death sentence was just. Socrates kept his position. That was the win, by his accounting.